Yo, what is going on, guys? It's JLJ Fishing here, and today I'm going to be showing you guys my setup and give you guys some personal tips on how you can catch more fall run trout and salmon this year. First, we're going to start off by showing you my combo. So this is what I've been using the past 3 years. I've had no issues with it. The only thing is I changed out the reel that it comes with, but this is a Riversider 10-foot ultralight combo. This works great. It's got great rod action. That's what you want. You want more of a flexible rod when you're flow fishing. So I would suggest changing out the reel, whether you put a center pin reel on this. This is a great rod, don't get me wrong, but the reel it comes with is not that great because it literally broke like the first week I got it. So I had just having a Kuma area reel on there, and you're gonna wanna make sure it can handle the amount of line you put on there. I personally have 20-pound tests braid. What a longer rod does for you when you're flow fishing is it allows you to mend the line and be able to control the line a lot more to keep it off the water. Because when the line is sitting on the water when you're flow fishing, it kind of messes up your drift. It's not going to be accurate. Like I said, you can also go ahead and change this out, and you could completely run a center pin setup on this rod. So now what we're going to get into is what main line to use, and then also leader line. The main line I'm currently running is, I think it's 20 or 25-pound tests, and completely braid, and that's my main line. It casts smoothly. You don't really need anything too crazy, but I would 100% recommend braid as your main line. And then as far as leader line goes, it doesn't have to be the best brand of line because you're gonna have split shots and stuff on it. So I know a lot of lines tend to have like memory, so it kind of coils up, but it really does not matter what kind of brand you have. It's just gotta be fluorocarbon or mono. Depends on the situation you're fishing in. Now, this is personally the line I use. I use Berkeley Tri-Line. It's worked perfect for me. I've never had any issues with it, but you're also gonna wanna have a diversity of line with you. Now, in your fishing bag, you're 100% gonna wanna have a lot of diversity of lines, ranging from 4-pound all the way up to 12, 16-pound tests. I personally have 4-pound, 6-pound, 8-pound, and then I go up to 12-pound and 16-pound line. The reason for this is it's all dependent on the conditions. If the water is very clear, you're going to want to use a lighter line. 4-pound test is mainly for trout. You would never use 4-pound test for salmon, but with this is if the water is very clear and the water is very low. If the water is very clear and low for trout, you're going to want to use this lighter line because they won't be able to see it. Now, if your conditions are in, the middle, water conditions are relatively clear, but you want to catch trout and salmon, I'd recommend using 8-pound line. You're going to also want to be fishing in a spot where the current isn't raging because it'll be impossible to get those fish using 8-pound line if the current's just ripping. Now, the only reason we'd use 12 to 16-pound line is if we're fishing somewhere where the current's raging and the water's a little murky, because then the fish won't be able to see the line and you'll be able to reel them in a lot easier than if you're using 8 or 4-pound test line. Now, a few other things you're gonna need along with the line. You'll see where this comes in handy later in the video, but you're going to need some barrel swivels. Also going to need these bobber stops. And then one last thing that is very helpful that you're going to need, it's not necessarily a necessity, but this will be very helpful, is a very small kind of bead. You'll see where this comes in later in the video. And now we're gonna get into some more of the gear you're gonna need to make this float setup actually work. So the biggest thing that you're gonna need with a float fishing setup is you're gonna need a variety of weights. I don't know the exact sizes, but this is a 124 pack. You can get it for about 15, 20 bucks at Walmart, and these are perfect because you're gonna need some bigger sizes, smaller sizes, depending on where you're fishing. I also always have a pack of around 8 of these egg weights, just in case you're fishing in a spot where it's at like I know Oak Orchard has like a powerhouse where the current's ripping. It's a lot deeper, so you need your stuff to get down there a lot faster. You're gonna need a bigger float. Now, another thing that is probably the most crucial part is if you're using salmon eggs or skein, I recommend using, I don't know exactly what size this is. I think it's a size 4 or 6. This is just a worm hook, and it actually has a little curvature right there that helps set the hook right into the fish's lip, especially the corner. The brand I've had the most success with these hooks is going to be Gamakatsu. Now, for your floats, I always have a variety. These are Thrill. They come in a variety pack. They come in sizes a little bit bigger than this, and then all the way down to like this small. I think that's very helpful because then you don't have to always go out when you need to go to a new place. You just have those floats with you. I have it all the way up to a 1-ounce Sheffield float, and I use this if I'm fishing bigger bodies of water like the Salmon River or Oak Orchard or Burt Dam. This helps having a bigger float when you're fishing heavier current, so it keeps your bait right in the strike zone. Now I'm going to show you guys my top 3 baits that I use under a float. Now, number 1, I have a bead-in egg sack combo. I use a bead-in egg sack combo when the conditions are a little more clear and there's not that much current. It just attracts the fish more and they're more willing to bite. Now for number 2, I have a marabou jig. I'll use a marabou jig in pretty much any condition. It just depends on what size I use. I'll use a smaller size when I'm fishing in more clear and stable water, and I'll use a bigger size if the conditions are more, the water's high and it's a lot dirtier. Now for number 3, I have this panfish jig. I use this panfish jig mainly when I'm fishing for trout in high water and dirty like chocolate milk conditions, and it works great, especially in the chartreuse. Now that I've showed you guys every single thing that you need for this flow fishing setup, now let's put it all together. So we are going to start from the very top of our main line. This is our main line right here, and we got to start with our bobber stopper. So you're going to want to slide this in all the way through this black part of the bobber stop. And then this is a very important part. When you pull off the bobber stop, you're going to want to make sure the black part, when you pull this off, the black part is down below towards the end of your main line, so you can slip off the black part. Never litter. You want to put this in your bag or in a pocket or garbage or whatever. You're going to want to pull this tight, and you can move this too, so you can pull it tight, and then you're going to be able to move this bobber stop wherever you want. Take our scissors, cut off this excess line on the bobber stop. Bobber stop's on, slide that up a ways, and now you're going to want to get a really tiny bead, and this helps so that your float does not go over your bobber stop. Okay, you're going to want to throw that all the way through, and next you're going to want to get a little bit bigger bead. I'm not sure exactly what size, but you guys get the gist. And the order is also very important. The small bead first, then the medium-sized bead next. Next, you're going to get whatever size float you're using. I'm using a smaller float because today is slower conditions with clearer water. Okay, now you have your line completely through your float. You're also going to want to make sure the float is the right size. Obviously, the wording's got to be like this. So the bottom of your wording's got to be towards the end. And now we're going to want to put another small bead on the end of this. Now we're going to want to tie on our barrel swivel. Now that we have the barrel swivel tied on, this is the time where you need to decide your leader line. Today the conditions are very clear, water is very low, so I'm going to be using my 4-pound test line. So first you're going to want to tie that one end on to your leader line, or to your barrel swivel. Now that you have this tied on, you're going to want to pull out around 2 to 3 feet of your leader line, then snip it at however long you want it to be. Now you're going to want to attach your lure of choice. Today I'm using a jig. Now that we have everything tied on, we're going to want to get our split shots and make sure we have enough weight on there. So since I have a lighter float on, I'm going to use a lot lighter split shots. So I'm going to have about 3 of these mid-size split shots. Okay, I got 3 of these mid-size split shots all the way down to my lure, and now you are all set. All right, now it's time to show you guys a quick little tip when you're out here fishing with a flow setup. You see that your bobber is straight up and down vertical. That means your setup is set up the exact right way. Now, another quick tip is after you have your line out there, you're gonna wanna make sure your main line does never touch the water. You're gonna wanna keep it as straight as possible up off the water. Now that is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed and learned something new from this video. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you have any more recommendations on anything that I did wrong, anything I can do better, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.